Hey everybody, and welcome back to the ranking video. Today we're going to be looking at the estimated win totals for every MLB team in 2026, according to myself. I've got 6 categories on my tier list, as you can see, which is 95 or more wins, 89 to 94 wins, 83 to 88 wins, 76 to 82 wins, 70 to 75 wins, and then less than 70 wins. I'm going to be semi-charitable in my interpretation of every team. I don't want to be overly negative, but there are definitely going to be some squads that are spread throughout. And I also do want to say that this is my attempt at being as unbiased as possible. So there's always a chance that there's some major injuries throughout the season and this ends up looking wildly outdated by year's end. But this is my read of the roster construction of every MLB team as it currently stands entering spring training. So starting with the Diamondbacks. I'm going to end up being, I think, a little more negative on the Diamondbacks than some other people have been in the baseball space. My biggest reason for that is they're already dealing with some pretty major injury issues, and the roster is so extremely top heavy. If Ketel isn't healthy, if Corbin isn't healthy, if Perdomo isn't healthy, they're already going to have a very difficult time staying in most games. I'm not a big fan of that bullpen, and their starting rotation is kind of pieced together with older dudes and people coming back from injuries. So I'm not feeling too high on the Diamondbacks, and considering that they literally won, I think it was 83, 82 games last season, and they got a healthy year from Corbin Carroll and Ketel and Perdomo had a breakout season, I'm not exactly sure how much higher they can go with the current construction that they have. The A's. I want to say Oakland A's, and you know what? I'm going to say Oakland A's. I think the Oakland A's are going to be in the 76 to 82 win window with ample room for more. The biggest issue with the A's basically is that their pitching has the potential to be some of the worst pitching in the majors, maybe even the worst pitching in the major leagues. But their lineup, conversely, has the potential to be potentially, I guess I said potential a bunch of times there, but regardless, they literally do have the upside of being a top 3, maybe even top 1 offense in all of the big leagues, especially at that bandbox that they play in. So I believe in their ability to get beyond this, but I'm going to go ahead and be somewhat conservative, split the difference, because I do think that their floor is really low potentially because of that pitching, and stick them in the 76 to 82 wins. Next up, we have the Braves. I think the Braves are going to win between, their pitching is already dealing with some injury issues. I'm going to say they're going to win between 89 and 94 games, and that's largely because their hitting is still some of the best in the major leagues in terms of their overall depth. When you have Ronald Acuna Jr. and Matt Olson, and Austin Riley and Drake Baldwin, Michael Harris even, he can't really get worse than he was last year, and he had a big rebound in the second half. Jerkson Profar even's going to, I think, be pretty decent at DH for them. You have a pretty high floor, in my opinion, unless everything goes wrong like it did last year. They've made some meaningful additions to the bullpen. I am very concerned about the health of their starting rotation. That could potentially hold them back. But if they end up with even a fraction of the same offense that they had in 2023 and 2024, they're going to be able to outslug a lot of those issues. So I'm going to put them in the 89 to 94 wins, but I do think they're a bit on the threshold between these two just because of my concerns, specifically with their starting pitching. The Orioles, I think, go into that category as well. Very similar team, honestly, in terms of an AL comparison to the Braves. I think their offense is going to be better this year. I don't really think their pitching can get worse than it was last season. They've added some guys. They've added Helsley. They've added a number of Boz, a number of different pitchers. And they do have some really, I think, good breakout candidates for 2026 as well. So, again, they have a wide variance. I could see them winning 97 games. I could also see them winning 82 games. But I'm going to split the difference. I'm going to stick them in 89 to 94. I expect them to compete for that division. On to the Red Sox now, and it's a very similar story with the Red Sox. They, again, have a pretty wide disparity, in my opinion, between their floor and their ceiling. If a lot of their young guys really show out, then I think that batting order has a chance to be one of the best in the major leagues. If they don't, maybe a little on the weaker side, but their pitching already keeps them at such a high level. Having Crochet and Gray and Bayo, and there's a ton of guys, I'm sure I'm missing a few in there as well, but having that level of a starting rotation along with a pretty decent bullpen, and again, some guys who I fully expect to take some step forward in 2026, including Roman Anthony, but also somebody like Marcelo Meyer and hopefully like even Ceddanne Rafaela at the plate, taking a bit of a step forward, having Jarren Duran. I think they're pretty comfortably going to sit in this 89 to 94 win range, potentially even getting past 95. But again, I'm going to be semi-conservative with my impression of every team. It's kind of funny here. That's what, four straight teams in the same exact tier. The Cubs have the highest floor, in my opinion, of any team not named the Dodgers, in my opinion, in the National League. They just have a roster chock full of talent. The only issue is it's not a lot of upper tier talent, right? Do I see Alex Bregman having a 5+ WAR season? Probably not. Is Nico Horner going to do what he did last season? Maybe. Again, probably not, though. He's typically been like a 3 to 4 win player in his career. Are they going to get the same production out of Carson Kelly, or at least elite level production out of Carson Kelly? Probably not. Seiya Suzuki has a ceiling because of his defense. Pete Crow Armstrong swings and misses a ton and chases a lot of pitches. Great talent. I think a pretty decent roster construction overall. Not super sold on the bullpen personally, and there's some starting pitching concerns, but I do think they have a really high floor because of that lineup. And I think it's going to keep them in this 89 to 94 win range. I don't see them really getting beyond that. Next up, the White Sox. I'm going to say the White Sox are going to take a small step forward and not lose 100 games. The thing that's going to keep them held back, in my opinion, is going to be lack of lineup depth and then lack of depth in their starting rotation. Their bullpen, deceptively good. And they definitely do have some upper tier talent, I think, in their lineup. When you look at Colson Montgomery, Munetaka Murakami, and a few other guys who I think are pretty solid, their catcher as well. But they're lacking depth overall. A lot of times that's what happens when you're kind of in the middle stages of rebuild. So 70 to 75 wins, I think, is a pretty fair place to put them. They could potentially be even a little bit better than that if they have a few of their young guys that are going to be coming up, take small steps forward and contribute towards that overall production. But for now, I'm going to keep them in 70 to 75. The Cincinnati Reds. I think 83 to 88 wins is a fair place to put them. I know it seems like it's a wide margin, but I did want to give a little bit of leeway on either side of 500 for any of these tiers. They finished with 83 wins last year. I have a hard time seeing them being worse in 2026. Ellie De La Cruz had a down year. He had some injury issues. I think he's going to be better in 2026. They now have Suarez, who's going to be a huge boon to that offense in terms of raw power production. Sal Stewart, I think, is going to be a beast. Tyler Stevenson can't be any worse than last year. And that starting rotation has one of the highest floors of any starting rotation in Major League Baseball, in my opinion. Bullpen, maybe there's some iffy pieces to it, but again, I don't think this team has the juice to be elite, but I think they could be competing for a National League wildcard spot by year's end. The Guardians. A lot of people, just because of the Guardians, like devil magic, end up putting them higher than I think I personally would. I'm going to put them in 76 to 82 wins. If you look at the Pythagorean win-loss run differential piece that MLB does every year, they were estimated to win around this number of games. And yeah, do they typically outperform that? Sure. But I'm not going to go ahead and slot them any higher than 76 to 82 because they haven't done anything with this roster over the offseason to justify that. With just a small regression in terms of overall luck, they are going to be a 76 to 82 win team. And they're also now facing a Tigers team, and obviously I'm a little biased because I'm a Tigers fan, but I think, again, I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible. They're going to be facing a Tigers team now that is going to be better than in years past. The White Sox, I think, are going to be better than in years past as well. It's a division that the competition level is going to go up. I see them losing quite a few more games than last season, and I really don't see them being in the wild card picture by late September, unless they do something or get some real prospect breakouts in there, but those things are hard to predict. Next up, we have the Rockies, less than 70 wins. I don't want to give them too much time because, frankly, it's like there's not much of a discussion here. The Rockies are going to be one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball. The only thing that I'm encouraged by them over this offseason was they basically gutted their entire front office and put a bunch of different people in power in that team. So maybe 3 years from now, 4 years from now, we might be seeing a Rockies team that has the potential for more than this. But for now, they're in the depths of baseball hell. Probably going to be the worst team in baseball again. Maybe even challenging for that worst team in MLB history title, because this roster is really ugly. Tigers, I'm going to put the Tigers in the 89 to 94 wins. I think they jumped up a peg after they grabbed Framber Valdez, and then they kind of insulated themselves with that Justin Verlander deal. I would personally, as a Tigers fan, rather have Reese Olson than Justin Verlander at this point. Nostalgia be damned, just from a production standpoint, but Verlander is a very competent 4-5 in a rotation, and Framber has got to be one of the best twos in all of Major League Baseball. So between him, Skubal, Flaherty, They got Mize. They got some really good depth in the starting rotation, and their offense actually wasn't bad last year. It was arguably around a top 10 offense in the game. So with some steps forward from their young players, it could be even better. And then, of course, the big X factor here is Kevin McGonigal coming up, hopefully early on in the season, if not in the middle of the season, and then injecting some electricity, some life into that lineup. Max Clark would be great too, but he's a little bit more unpolished so far than McGonigal, so we'll see if he ends up coming up. But regardless, and they made some good improvements to the bullpen as well. So I think 89 and 94 wins is a pretty safe place to put them. There's not going to be a ton of teams, I think, in 95 or more wins, if I'm being honest, just because every team this season, minus, a couple, have pretty major flaws. Next up, we have the Houston Astros. And again, it's like, maybe I'm putting too many teams in this tier. But the Astros, they won 87 games last year, and they basically had the worst injury luck, but also handling of their players that I've seen in a long time. Jordan got hurt. Pena was hurt for a small portion of the season. You could honestly go up and down the lineup for dudes that were just catastrophically injured. Their starting rotation just decimated as always. And I am a little bit iffy on their starting rotation entering 2026 because of some of those major injury concerns. But again, last year everything went wrong and they won 87 games. So do I see them winning less than that in 2026? Probably not. Just a healthy year of Jordan, I think, gets them over 90. So fair place to put them. Kansas City, I'm going to put them in the 83 to 88 wins. They had a bit of a regression after a strong 2024 season, but they still have Bobby Witt Jr. I think Jack Caglione is going to be a star. Last season was horrible. Don't get me wrong. His underlying metrics are some of the best in the game when it comes to how hard he hits the ball and at what angles he hits it at. So he really just needs to have a couple things click in order to be one of the best players in Major League Baseball from a pure power hitting perspective. Sal Perez had a really unlucky year. Go look at his expected numbers versus his real world. The dude got robbed at 80 points of slugging percentage, and they're moving in the fences at Kauffman. So I think their lineup's going to be deceptively good. Vinny Pasquantino, of course. And then their pitching is always good. Their pitching's always solid, especially their starting pitching. They're going to get a full year of Cole Reagans. I think 83 to 88 wins and competing for that central title, potentially a little with the Tigers maybe in the last couple months of the season, and then potentially for an AL wildcard as well. Is kind of what their destiny is going to be for 2026. The Angels are in baseball hell right now. They're going to win 70 to 75 games because they have a bunch of flyers on their roster that are going to perform, I think, reasonably well. I could see a Kirby Yates having a 3.5 ERA, a Jordan Romano, similar range. They're going to have a ton of guys. Jordan Mancada having, an 800 OPS roughly. A bunch of guys who are going to give them pretty good production while not being enough to get over the 81 win mark. That's going to keep them in that spot that they've been in for the past 3 to 4 years now, which is not good enough to compete for anything, but not bad enough to trigger a full-scale rebuild. So there's very few franchises in Major League Baseball I would consider in a worse spot right now than the Angels. The Dodgers, 95 more wins. Same thing as the Rockies. I don't want to spend too crazy much time on this. The Dodgers came into the offseason as a World Series winner, back-to-back World Series winner, and massively improved the back end of their bullpen and their outfield with signing Kyle Tucker and Edwin Diaz. I think 95 more wins should be the standard. Last year, they didn't even win 95 games, just kind of crazy to say. But this year, if they don't win 100 plus, I'll be really surprised. So, Miami Marlins, I'm going to put Marlins in the 76 to 82 wins. I know some people are high on their development overall. Again, this is a big problem that we're seeing with teams like the White Sox, and I think they're a little above where the White Sox are, but they don't have the roster depth, right? They have some good players. They have Xavier Edwards. They have Kyle Stowers. They have Jacob Marcy. They have some real talent in their starting rotation with Yuri Perez and Sandy Alcantara, but they don't have a ton of depth. If any of those guys sustain any kind of injuries, that's going to heavily impede their season. They need everything to go right to even be competitive for a potential wild card spot. So I'm going to put them in this spot and hope that things break right because I do like seeing Miami have some degree of success in baseball. It always makes me feel good. The Brewers, I'm lower on the Brewers than a lot of people are, man. I'm going to be real. 83 to 88 wins. I know that they're probably going to get above this just because they always seem to, but trading some of their more valuable players like a Freddie Peralta or even like a Caleb Durbin, who I think was kind of underrated at third base last year in the National League Rookie of the Year discussion, trading those guys and then getting back players that have some major league application, but not a ton. I don't like it. I don't like what it signals to the team. I don't like what it signals to the franchise. They almost, to me, remind me of a team like the Guardians, only slightly better run, right? So they know the players they want, they go out and get them, and they perform better than you'd expect because they so decidedly have their mold locked in. But I look at the roster right now and I cannot see this team winning beyond 88 games. I think they're definitely on the higher end of this tier. I think 86 to 88 is probably where they're going to be. But Freddie Peralta easily was a 4-win player last year by himself. Like Caleb Durbin was like a near 3-win player. You traded both of those guys and you didn't get a ton of help for your major league roster. Is Jet Williams going to make an immediate impact? We'll see. But Brandon Sproat is going to make an immediate impact? We'll see. But I'm definitely not as high on them entering 2026 as some people seem to be. Twins, honestly, I think the Twins are going to lose 100 plus games this season just because their starting rotation, which they have a lot of talent in, are already dealing with injury issues. I think they're going to be bad enough that they're going to trade a lot of pieces at the deadline, which is going to further make their second half results look even worse. And I mean, how many players on this roster right now can you say are decided major leaguers besides Byron Buxton, right? I mean, like solid, pencil them into competitive teams in major league spots. There's not that many, right? So I think they're going to win, less than 70 games. And again, I think that just because of the Pohlad family, they're in one of the worst spots in all of Major League Baseball as a franchise. The Mets, I'm going to put the Mets in the 89 to 94 win place. Some people might think that's aggressive because of how they performed last year. They actually outperformed their expected or underperformed their expected win-loss total by a significant portion. They had some bad luck. I think that I don't know if they've improved the roster necessarily, but just some positive regression to the mean is going to get them in this 89 to 94 win place. And any team that has Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto on it, along with now Freddie Peralta, Nolan McLean, like there's some real upper tier talent on this team. We'll see if it ends up panning out for the Mets, but I think 89 to 94 wins as a prediction is pretty solid. The New York Yankees, again, similar placing, 89, 94 wins. They're getting to be a little bit on the boring side, in my opinion. And they're boringly great. I mean, every year they win 90 to 94 games. Every single season. I think they could potentially win, maybe 95, 96 games, which you'd think put them into this tier. But I'm not that confident in that because they actually don't have a lot of positive progression with their roster construction over this offseason, right? They're bringing back a lot of players they had last year, and they still have some of the big holes that they had last season as well. So I think 89 to 94 wins is a comfortable place to put them. I don't really see them winning less than 92 games, though, unless something goes catastrophically wrong. Phillies, I think the Phillies actually got marginally worse over the offseason, but, they're the Phillies. I mean, you have Bryce Harper, you have Kyle Schwarber, you have Christopher Sanchez. You're going to get Zach Wheeler back at some point. You have some of the best prospect depth or some of the best upper tier prospects in the minor leagues with Justin Crawford. And obviously there's their big starting pitcher prospect that I'm forgetting his name right now, but he's going to probably be up at some point this season as well. I think they're going to be good. They're going to be in that range, the 89 to 94 win range. It's hard to see them going beyond that just because they are getting older and, are some of the guys that had great years last year. Is Schwarber going to hit 55 plus homers? Is Turner going to have one of the best defensive seasons by a shortstop? We'll have to see. Again, I'm not feeling super great about that, but I do think that they're comfortably in that range as well of 89 to 94 wins. The Pirates, I think the Pirates are going to take a step forward this year. I think they're going to be competing for a wild card spot. I think they're going to be around 500. They've made some improvements to that lineup, which honestly, they really needed to do very little to make massive improvements because they were so bad last year. And they've made those improvements. So now you have Brandon Lau coming in. You have Ryan O'Hearn coming in. Marcell Ozuna, I'm not sure exactly how he fits into the roster construction, but he'll hit better than a lot of the other guys they have on the team. Sawinski's been released. They have, obviously, without it even being said, Paul Skeens and just a whole host of absolute horses in their rotation. Have some decent bullpen talent as well. Are they going to get beyond this range? I find it doubtful just because, again, overall their roster depth is not crazy good, but I do expect them to be competing for a playoff spot in 2026 at some point at least, which, again, that's a big step forward for them. Padres are going into 83 to 88 wins. There's, again, a lot of people I think are just penciling them in for a playoff spot because they've been in the playoffs for the last few years, and it just kind of seems inevitable at this point. It's very, very hard for me to see them decidedly rolling into a playoff spot. Their roster looks just atrocious. Like, I really have a hard time seeing their roster winning 85, 86, 87 games with impunity, right? Like, they're signing all of these secondary players who are trying to, like, have rebound seasons at this point. They're really hamstrung in terms of cash. Xander Bogaerts, Manny Machado, they're not getting any younger. I think it's about to be a dark time in San Diego. Maybe one last run at a postseason spot because they do still have some pretty decent overall talent on this roster, but it's tough for me to see them at least it's tough for me to see them at the most having a decent playoff run. Seattle Mariners, I think the Mariners are one of the few teams where I'm pretty comfortable in saying they're going to win 95 or more games. If you look at what their lineup did last year, they're going to probably be able to replicate that. All of the underlying stats for Cal Raleigh say he's going to be really good. He's not going to hit 60 plus homers again, but all of them say he's going to be really good. Julio, I think, is going to be really good as well. Might even take a step forward. I think overall their lineup now has more talent than it's had in a number of seasons, and their starting pitching is going to be better than it was in 2025. That's my personal opinion. I really have a hard time seeing them being anywhere near as bad as they were. I mean, look at the guys that they had underperform overall. It's literally like the top 4 guys in the rotation, besides Brian Wu, were underperforming or injured for a large portion of the season. So with just a small regression back to the mean in health and overall productivity for those guys, I think 95 more wins is going to be pretty comfortable. They're not going to approach the Dodgers, but I do think they're going to be an elite team in Major League Baseball. San Francisco Giants, I mean, this is where they end up every season at this point, right? They didn't make any huge additions to the roster over the offseason, in my opinion. It's another team that I don't really feel that I don't want to talk too much about because they're going to be mediocre. Like, they're going to be an average team. They're going to probably win 81 games again or, around there. Maybe they'll end up with 83. Maybe they'll end up with 77. But it's just tough to see a couple of these dudes like Logan Webb, and now Willie Adames has been added to that. Matt Chapman, Rafael Devers now on the team. They're just not getting surrounded by enough talent to get them into that like firm playoff window, which that's tough. That's tough to see as a casual baseball fan. Cardinals, I'm going to be real with the Cardinals. I think they're going to win less than 70 games. When you look at who they traded away this offseason, and again, I think it's worth it for them because they now have one of the best farm systems in the game. They were one of the worst like 2 years ago. They traded Wilson Contreras. They traded Brendan Donovan. They traded Sonny Gray. A number of other guys. Like literally everybody who was really good, Nolan Arenado, everybody who was even moderately good on their team last season that was on a contract that would bring them benefit to trade, they traded. I think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the overall NL Central, as well as the overall sport, I guess. But I do think it's a good progression overall for their franchise. The Rays are a consummate 76 to 82 win team, in my opinion. Now they're the Rays again, right? So it's like similar to the Brewers, similar to the Guardians. They're probably going to outplay this ranking in 2026, but last year, they didn't end up winning more. If I'm not mistaken, they didn't end up winning more than 83 games. If they did, it was just barely more than 83 games. They're on like a 2 to 3 year run, if I'm not mistaken, of not making the playoffs after basically making the playoffs every season for the prior decade. So I'm not sure if we quite have the elite analytical Rays in the same way we once did, at least in terms of its output on the field, especially in a hyper-competitive division. I don't think the Rays are going to be one of the better teams. Rangers, I think the Rangers are going to be very comfortable in this 83 to 88 win window. They were roughly around there last season, and they dealt with some really bad luck. If you look at their run differential, they were one of the best teams in Major League Baseball in run differential that didn't make the playoffs. Finally got a healthy season from Jacob deGrom. Corey Seager was at least reasonably healthy, played like 110, 120 games, which for him is probably the closest you're going to get to a full season. I don't think they've made a lot of improvements. Mackenzie Gore, I think, is a good add for them. But just, again, positive regression to the mean is going to get them into this 83 to 88 win window. With potential, I mean, if things break the right way, they have a chance to win potentially 90-plus games. But we'll have to see with that. The Toronto Blue Jays, I think the Blue Jays are another one of those teams that I'm more comfortable in saying are going to win 95 games just because their lineup is so deep. It's so stacked. Like, they have an arguably, in my opinion, top 3 lineup in the game, maybe at worst top 5. And a lot of those guys are relatively young, right? When you look at Vladdy, Alejandro, Addison Barger on his way up, George Springer's, all of his metrics were so good last year. He basically was hitting like a 27-year-old. Will that continue? I guess we'll have to see. Ernie Clement's a really great role player for them. There's just a ton of talent on this roster, and they've also added some really intriguing pieces over this offseason as well, most notably, in my opinion, being Dylan Cease, who really helps to shore up that starting rotation. And finally, the Washington Nationals. I mean, easy, less than 70 wins in my opinion. Like one of the worst rosters in Major League Baseball. I think maybe next to the Rockies, the worst roster in Major League Baseball. They have James Wood, they have CJ Abrams, a couple intriguing young players, and then really nothing. Like it's really, when you look at their 6 through 9 hitters last year, it gets really dark. So maybe a few of those guys have some progressions. I'd like to see Dylan Cruz and Brady House take steps forward. But we'll have to see. And again, I'm not expecting too much out of the Washington Nationals in 2026. Are they launching another full-scale rebuild? I guess we'll have to see. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure to yell at me for any teams that you disagree with, as well as letting me know what your rankings would be in the comments below. All right, everybody. If you made it this far, I appreciate you watching. And if you did, consider checking out any of these other videos on your screen right now for other content just like this. Also, if you ever see anything you'd like to see me detail in the video, feel free to reach out to my email, basebpoet@gmail.com, and if I end up using your idea, I'll give you a shout out. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day.